Welcome to the weekly Wednesday Team Prosperity meeting. We're going to go directly into things that can help you with your business, whether you're building a book of business, whether you're building agencies, whether you are marketing, managing, or into sales. Should have some things that can help you on a week in, week out basis. So we're at the end of April here. And like we've been talking about, during the normal time, summer months for a lot of businesses can be a downtime. You know, you've got people going on vacation, people checking out, weather's getting better. However, we understand from an activity standpoint and from a mental standpoint, if we put the same activity in continuously and consistently, then even during those down periods, we've got business coming in. So don't take time off when everybody else does. Work through those periods of time and gain a competitive advantage against them. We just completed the 12-week year. We had a few people complete it, the whole thing. And really what you want to understand is that when we start to do this again, if you want to participate, great. If you don't, it's really about a 90-day madman cycle. And through that process, once you start to master it, you can start to understand that you're going to get more done in 1 year than most people can accomplish in 4 years. And if you put a string of a few years together, well, it doesn't matter what type of shortened period of time and massive activity somebody has, the separation between you and them has grown to the point they just can't catch up with you. So I highly recommend the 12-week year or the 90-day madman cycle to get yourself in a position to, gain a competitive advantage in whatever you're trying to do. Last week, you guys, we talked about, how basically procrastination kills your business. So if you think everything can wait until tomorrow, your business is going to suffer today. Procrastination in business is dangerous. It can kill your success, and you need to find out how to stop it now and become more productive. So this week, what we're concentrating on is high performance. So once we get past procrastination, we want to think, okay, how can I get myself into a higher gear, perform at a higher level, and reap the benefits of that high performance? Remember, if you're doing something that's disruptive and it's changing the way that business is normally done, you have to understand that from a kind of like a macro standpoint, that money is going to leave traditional and it's going to flow to digital. So once you understand that you're in a good position on a macro level, all you have to do is just really fix yourself to fully capitalize on that, disruption. And like I said, put yourself in a position to help others. If you don't learn how to become a high performance, salesperson, manager, marketer, whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish, you're essentially just burning money up. So once you understand that, average performance or low performance is costing you money, it's easier to register in your head, hey, I need to get myself together. I need to get myself more organized. I need to perform at a higher level so that I'm not burning money. That money's actually coming back to me. And you got to remove the roadblocks. There's roadblocks, there's obstacles to high performance. Once you identify those and you move past those, it's a lot easier to continuously and consistently, like we talk about, perform at a high level. Like we talk about with our clients, one of the things you have to understand is you got to make it real. So when you evaluate what's going on in your business, in your professional life, think about, hey, if I haven't accomplished something, what stopped me in the past? What are those roadblocks? What are those obstacles? And then secondarily, once I get to that high performance and I start hitting those goals, how is that going to change my life? And then once you understand those two things, it's as easy as just asking yourself, what are you willing to do? Make a plan of action and execute at a high performance level. And then once you do that, the money starts to roll out for you. If you get in the mindset of helping people and you get in the mindset of high performance, the money's definitely going to follow. So let's talk about what is high performance. You need to bring intention and action. So it can't just be misdirected or random activity. It's got to be activity with intention. And then along the way, if you're going to be a high performer, you've got to set targets, you got to set objectives, and you got to measure those. How close or how far away am I getting from these targets or objectives? Getting ahead in a competitive world, in a competitive sales world, is very, very important. It separates the low earners from the high earners and equate that to low performers and high performers. So you're going to get a competitive advantage, first of all, by just doing something every day that your competition won't do or doesn't do. And going back to what we were talking about, if you consistently start to do that, perform at a high level, that separation, like we talked about earlier, will become too far. And you'd be separated yourself so much from the pack that no matter what they do over a shortened time span, they're not going to be able to catch and compete with you. Like we said, consistency is the key. It's not about coming out with full force for a couple of weeks and then slowing down. It's about consistent activity at a high performance level over X period of time. So the top performers are really the top 20%. So that rest of the 80% is going to fall into the middle, which a lot of people do. It's that 60%. And then the bottom, the 20%. So you need to separate yourself from that 80, the middle and bottom performing people, and you need to become a high performer. You know, which do you want to be? Obviously, the high performers are going to make more money. They're going to have a better business. They're going to create a better lifestyle for themselves. All the things that you want are going to be found in the high performance top 20%. So let's talk about what high performers do. This is kind of like your high performer checklist. First of all, high performers understand and they know exactly where their lead generation comes from. So if you sit down and you look at your business and you have no idea where your leads are going to come from, then you have to understand that's one of the first areas of the checklist that you have to fix. You can't be a high performer and bring home a lot of money if you have no idea where your leads are coming from. Leads for a lot of businesses, most businesses, is going to be the lifeblood of that business. With no lead generation, there's no outcomes. With no outcomes, there's no revenue, income, and growth. So you have to understand and know where your leads come from, whether that's warm market, cold market, common market, social media, combination of a bunch of different things. Understand what you're doing, what that results in terms of lead generation, so you can scale and grow your business, making, once again, data-driven decisions over emotional ones. Up next on the checklist is high performers. They execute every single day. It doesn't matter how we feel, what's going on. If we're into the business, we're working our business, we're executing every single day. The more time that we take off, the more time that we go into our business, unmotivated, without activity, without intention, not meeting targets and objectives, the more we're going to fall into that middle performer and the low performer status. So understand that if you're going to build a business and it's going to be successful, you got to execute every single day. Also, high performers, they're not here to make friends. They're here to make themselves money, their clients money, and their partners money. Yes, friendships come from helping clients, helping partners over X period of time. That's natural. However, on the front end, you cannot be making friends. You have to do a lot of things that we're going to be talking about. But one of those things is to make sure that you're not coming in trying to make friends on the onset. Establish authority. So if we're not making friends, then we want to establish authority on the front end. Remember, if you're driving somebody to a next action step, if you're asking somebody to take this step, whatever it is, A, B, C, or D, you got to establish authority on the front end to make sure they understand that, hey, the person I'm talking to, I need to be talking to, and what they're telling me to do, I need to actually do. So high performers, they establish authority and they establish very quickly. So that trust, rapport, credibility that we always talk about, yes, that needs to remain in place, but you also need to establish the authority. High performers are also assertive, but not aggressive. Remember, that's a fine line to walk. If we do what we need to do, which is not make friends on the front side, we establish our authority, now we can position ourselves to be assertive in taking that next action step with them. But like I said, it is a fine line. We can't be too aggressive because that becomes off-putting to the other side. High performers absolutely know how to disqualify. If I disqualify somebody in 30 seconds, it takes you 30 minutes. Well, guess what? That other 29 and a half minutes, I can spend doing other things, spend with more qualified people, spend it marketing, spend it building my business. So understand, you want to talk to people that fit in your persona that you can actually help out. If you disqualify them and continue to spend your time with them, you're wasting your time and wasting their time. It's not fair to you and it's not fair to them. High performers are obsessed with the next action step. If you leave things out in the open, if you leave things to the other side, what you're going to find is you're going to work really hard for little to no outcomes. You got to work smart, and working smart means working at a high performance. And that means that every single thing that we do, we've got to target our objective. We got a next action step, and we're obsessed with getting that in place. High performers also understand this is a game, guys. And once you just clear that out and understand this is a game, it becomes easier. When you don't get too emotional or too upset about any given person or meeting or action step, it becomes easier. It's just a game. It's just a numbers game. And as you get better at the game, guess what? You get a higher score, you get a higher performance, you make more money. High performers also, if it's going to be a game, you learn how to enjoy it. You know, we usually don't play games that we hate. So if you're going to play the game, enjoy the game, because the more that you can identify this as a game, the more that you can enjoy it, and the more that you can get those negative feelings and connotations and emotions out of the situation, the easier it's going to be for you to go through the necessary steps, perform at a high level, and build the type of business that you expect. And then high performers, they dominate. That doesn't mean that they're in their office chair for 12 hours a day. That just means that when they're in that office chair, when they're working their business, they are dominating that time span. They're not, flipping around, getting distracted, looking at social media. They're dialed in and they're dominating because they know high performance doesn't come from competing. High performance comes from dominating. Also, high performers understand that, when you're going to be on the sales side of things, and even on the marketing side up front, sometimes the best defense is going to be a good offense. So how do we preemptively overcome some of the common challenges, objections, obstacles that we're going to face? Well, high performers know how to do that. So when you're looking at objections, you need to understand high performers, they actively listen, because once you understand and identify what the potential buyer wants, it's a lot easier to connect everything. And once again, take them to the next action step. Top performers know how to ask clarifying questions about what they heard. They know how to educate the prospect. They don't oversell or just try to close the deal. They have a mutual conversation about if and how we can help them. Right? We can't help everybody. So you need to understand and have that conversation on the front side. And then top performers know how to clarify again if you understand them correctly. Top performers also understand what to avoid, which is too much information. So you have to understand people can only absorb so many words. If you're just talking in circles, if they ask you a question and you answer it and you're going off on some long diatribe about who knows what, you're losing people. So too much information, top performers avoid that. They avoid answering unasked questions. They avoid pitching unwanted features or benefits. They avoid misaligning the solution to their pains or the use case. And they avoid saying anything that creates unnecessary risk in the prospect's mind. You have to be defined in your approach. You have to understand what you're trying to accomplish. And along that path, you have to understand that if you're doing things to unnecessarily put up, unwanted roadblocks and obstacles, stop doing that to become a high performer. And then also high performers understand, what are the typical objections? People have typical objections, and those objections stop the client from buying and stop you from selling. So once you understand and recognize and deal with these effectively, once again, it just becomes a game. You understand what you're trying to do. You understand how to disqualify, and you understand how to recognize these objections, whether they're unspoken, whether they're excuses, whether they're malicious, whether they're requests for more information, whether they're a show off, subjective or personal, objective, factual, whether they're general sales resistance or last ditch. The purpose of this meeting is not to go through these, but we do have an excellent video in the Facebook group by Brian Tracy that covers all 9 of these. Highly recommend that you go in and check that out. And then also high performers know how to handle sales objections like a pro, a professional. And that means practice active listening. Remember, most of the time the other side should be talking. Why? Because when they talk, they give us the information that we need to uncover problems that we can offer a solution for, that, guess what, leads to the action step. They also know and how to repeat back what they hear. They know how to validate the prospect's concerns. Remember, if somebody's got a concern, you have to validate that. You have to appreciate it. You have to work through and answer it, not just ignore it. Top performers, they ask follow-up questions. They leverage social proof. They set specific dates and times for follow-up. Remember, next action step, obsessed. And they anticipate sales objections like we've been talking about. Top performers also know how to reframe things. So sometimes an objection can be reframed. So is that problem, can it be really reframed as an opportunity? Can that weakness be reframed as a strength? Can that poor timing be reframed as perfect timing? So once again, top performers know how to reframe objections into other parts or areas. And then top performers know how to close deals. They know how to close conversations. So at the end of the day, at the end of the conversation, at the end of the meeting, you know, what part of that concern do you feel is still left unaddressed? Because remember, rebuttals, objections, all of these things, once you clear them out one by one and there's none left, guess what? Now we can move to the next action step. And then finally, top performers know who to stay away from: the shopper, the snail, the hide and seeker, the stacked deck, the criminal. So if somebody's just constantly shopping around, never making a decision, guess what? They're going to waste your time for as long as you let them. The snail, these are people that just are so slow. They're never going to make any type of action steps or decisions because they just operate at a slow level. The hide and seeker, you know, these people, they'll pop up from time to time and they'll go back in hiding. You know, there's going to be another time waster. The stack deck, no matter what information, no matter what you give them, they're going to always have some reason, you know, that they don't want to do business with you. And the criminal, they're going to take your information, your process, your products, your services, whatever, and use those for, you know, something that's could be not legal or not ethical. So these are the people that you want to stay away from, because you don't want to be dragged down by other people. You don't want to chase people. You don't want to be talking to people that are not going to do business with you. And so once you learn how to stay away from these people, your calendar, your time, your conversations are opened up for the people that you can actually help. So on a top performance scale, who says you can't? Remember, if the business works and the model works and the disruption is there, you know, all you got to do is fix yourself to fully take advantage of the situation at hand. So that's the top performing checklist, what we need to identify, what we need to work on, and how we need to organize ourselves in terms of, like we talked about, preemptively overcoming some of that stuff that's common and that shows up time and time again.